All right, welcome back to Neil Ratner Rock Doc's Reading Room, where I'm serializing my memoir, Rock Doc. We left off in Mexico. It's the late 70s. I'm a medical student, and I'm going to medical school in Guadalajara, Mexico. But today I'm going to do something a little different. There's an experience that I want to relate. It's not in the book, but it's very important. At the time I wrote the book, I chose not to include it, but I want to share it now. So here we go. All right. There's a little fishing village in Mexico called Yelapa, Y-E-L-A-P-A. And it's south of Puerto Vallarta on the Pacific coast. And Leanne and I found it sort of by accident. And we began to go there a lot on vacation during the latter years of when I was in medical school in Mexico and beyond, actually. And the place was really special. There was no electricity. There was no running water. And it was kind of like glamping. It was my first experience with sophisticated camping in a way, because what it was there was a little village. It was where a river met a bay. Very spiritual, Half Moon Bay, beautiful river, which then went up into the mountains. And to get to the village, you actually had to go along the river, along a path, up a little ways. But the beach area was for tourists. There was this little hotel. There were these fish restaurants, which served fresh fish, really great fresh fish. Pie ladies came down from the village, and people would go there to spend a day in paradise, so to speak. But there were all these palapas, some quite sophisticated with generators and whatever. And by palapa, I mean kind of jungle design with those thatched roof and stuff. And so there was a lot more going on that most tourists didn't know about. At any rate, having lived in Mexico, we found out about it, and Leanne and I started to go there. And we loved it. We just loved this idea of sort of sophisticated camping. And we were free and nature, and it was fantastic. There was one place there, though, that we really wanted to go, but we didn't know the woman who owned it. It was a place called Casa de las Palmas, and it was actually a house, a concrete house with the thatched roof. Beautiful house, beautiful piece of property, right where the end of the river where the river ended and the bay began. And tall palm trees, that's why it was called that, surrounded by tall palm trees. And there was a palapa guest house, and the woman who owned it looked exotic to us. I mean, she had this long dark hair, skinny, wore Hawaiian type clothing, flowy stuff. It was like Dorothy Lamour out of the movies. And we always wanted to meet her, but we didn't have entree. We went there once. We stayed with someone who knew her, and he said, listen, the next time, if you want to stay at her place, she's got a beautiful guest house, just tell her I sent you. Thanksgiving weekend, it was either 1979 or 80. We decide on the spur of the moment, a couple of days before Thanksgiving, we're going to go to Yelapa for 5 days. We'll figure it out. Maybe this lady will let us stay at her house. No telephones, obviously, or any way to contact people. You just show up. So we did. We just showed up, and she looked us over carefully, and and she said, well, my guest house is empty. You look okay. I like the guy who sent you. You can have the guest house. And the guest house was a trip. Because this was at the edge of the jungle, the beds were all elevated. Snakes, scorpions, stuff. So she had this swinging, hanging bed. And then she had a living room with these 2 waterbed couches that was sort of L-shaped, which was great too. Just fabulous. But it was jungle living, and her house was great. It was a couple days before Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, she invites us to Thanksgiving dinner. And this is real primitive here. No electricity, and you got to figure out what you're going to do before it gets dark, and light the lanterns, and go get your food, and all that stuff. She makes this incredible dinner in a gazebo out behind her house, lit candles, all candles on the path, a gazebo, unbelievable, and an unbelievable dinner for a place with no electricity. To this day, I don't know how she did it. And there were various people there, including this one older gentleman. I say older. I am older now than he was then. He was probably late 50s, maybe early 60s, and he had white hair, very grandfatherly looking, short, kind of bow legs, soft-spoken. And in the course of the Thanksgiving dinner, again, which was fabulous, he and I got along very well. And we began to talk. And I found out he was a psychologist from Berkeley, California. Okay? And I was, a late medical student getting ready to start my residency, whatever. We talked, got along, great, wonderful evening. Next day or two, he and I, we would wave. He was in the main house, I was in the guest house, we'd wave. One day he comes over to me late in the afternoon. He says, I've been watching you and Leanne. I really like you guys. And I think I can do something nice for you. I think I can help you. I said, yeah, okay. He says, do you get up early? I said, I can. He says, well, why don't you get up early tomorrow morning? And don't eat or drink anything. Don't eat or drink anything. Now, I have to say, this was in the 70s. And we were all doing various forms of consciousness alteration. And Yelapa happened to be one of the good places to do it because you were out in nature, nobody bothered you. It was just, so whether it was mushrooms or whatever. I wasn't sure where he was coming from, what he was talking about. We hadn't talked about that at dinner or anything. I said, great. He said, I'll be over early. And I'm looking forward to it. Great. I went back, I talked to Leanne, and she said, what do you mean he's coming over early? What do you mean we shouldn't eat or drink anything? Who is this guy? Is this guy Timothy Leary? Who does he think he is? What's going on here? I'm not interested. Blah, blah. I got a great vibe from him. And I convinced Leanne that no, we don't have to do anything. He'll come over in the morning. If you're uncomfortable, you're uncomfortable. But maybe there's something going on here. Maybe something special is going to happen. Okay, night went on, he came over in the morning, and he had a little satchel with him, okay? And he has Leanne sit on one waterbed couch, I'm sitting on the other one, he pulls up a chair between us. And there's a little table, and in his satchel, he pulls out a Sony Walkman, a whole stack of tapes, and a vial. And he starts his little story. And apparently, he's a psychologist from Berkeley, California. Again, the 7980. He became interested in one of his patients possibly had gotten turned on to LSD. He became interested in it. He had actually worked in Toronto in some place called the Hollywood Hospital, where they were using psychedelics, LSD, on alcoholics to try and make them so crazy that they weren't alcoholics, but instead it gave them insight into their alcoholism, and many stopped because of the LSD. At any rate, he became very interested in psychedelics, and he formed kind of an organization devoted to the safe, controlled usage and development of psychotropic substances. His name was Leo Zeff, Z-E-F-F. There's a Wikipedia page, and there was a book written about him called The Secret Chief. And he was just this beautiful man. And immediately, both Leanne and I trusted him. And he said, we've been working with different substances, we have people all over the world, all indigenous tribes. They all have psychedelic plants that they use for various ritual and spiritual purposes. And we've been studying various things as well as chemicals and whatever. And we have a chemist, and we've been working with a new medicine, he called it, that we call Adam. And I think that the two of you would really benefit from an experience, and I'd like to give you that experience right now. And you'll just lay head to head, and he pulled out a pair of eye shades. He said, you'll put on the eye shades, and here are 2 sets of headphones for the Walkman, and I have special music here, and it was non-worded, spiritually uplifting music. Actually, the beginning of New Age, what was New Age music. And he said, the idea is to take your eyes and turn them backwards. Stay inside yourself. Use this medicine to open yourself up to the experience that it wants to give you. If you have to talk to me, I'm here. I'm here to safeport you. I'm here to guide you, but not to interfere in your experience. And we went with it, and he gave us these 2 little pills, and we took it. And What he called Adam was MDMA. And I'm sure you know what MDMA is. It was later called ecstasy, but originally Leo and his people were the people who rediscovered it. The drug had been discovered by the Merck company, but it failed their trials of what they wanted to do with it. They never realized its true potential. And the chemist, Leo's friend, Alexander Shulgin, or Sasha, who's written many books, and you could look him up as well, had rediscovered it and thought that it could have some benefit to mankind. And so they began experimenting with it, and they found that it was something called an empathogen. Open up your heart. It allowed you to feel the love that most of us can't feel. Opened up the heart chakra. Wasn't a psychedelic in that it didn't make you hallucinate, but it took you to a different place. And they had a lot of success with it. It was very early on. They had just rediscovered it within that year or maybe the year before. But they already had success with terminally ill people and with people with PTSD and with couples and just with people who were so tight within themselves that they couldn't feel that love, that universal love that we all feel. At any rate, he gave us the medication. It was an incredible experience. We started out head to head. We ended up in each other's arms. Leanne's mother had died shortly before that. She hadn't reckoned with it, and she was able to do that. It was an incredible experience. And in subsequent days, I spoke to Leo about how could I get involved in the organization. And we talked about it, and I'm going to stop there. I did get involved in the organization, and I became somewhat of an expert in psychedelic medications. And for a while, I functioned as a psychedelic psychotherapist on the side. And they're all stories that I'll tell as we go along. But it all started in Yelapa, Mexico, with Leo Zeff on that Thanksgiving in 1979 or 80. And as I said, it was a truly significant point in my life. And I'll tell you more about what it meant to me and what I did about it and how I went further as time went on. All right. That's it for today. A little bit different. I hope you enjoyed it. And as I said, more about that subject as we go along, as well as more of the book. Next time, we're going to pretty much finish with Mexico and go on to residency, hospitals, and all that kind of good stuff. And yeah, that's it. You know where to find me. I hope you join me again for another reading next week. And remember, always keep on rocking. Bye.